This happened a few weeks ago. I'm 32 and a marine biologist. I moved to this coastal town to study how pollution affects sea life. I thought it would be a peaceful place for my research. I like spending time on the beach, listening to the waves. I've never stopped thinking about it since that night. One evening, I decided to take a walk along the shore after a long day. The beach was empty, the sky was dim, and the rocky cliffs loomed over me. As I walked, I felt a chill. It was strange for such a warm place. I brushed it off and kept going. Then I saw something shiny in the sand. I walked closer. It was a group of abalone shells, arranged in a circle. I didn't remember seeing shells like these before. My heart raced a little as I bent down to look closer. They were empty. I looked out at the water and felt uneasy. Maybe the tide had pulled them together? Still, it felt wrong. The air was too still. I felt an odd pressure behind me, like I was being watched. I quickly walked back home, shaking off the feeling. Over the next few days, I returned to the beach often, hoping to find something useful for my research. Each time, I found more shells. They came in different shapes. Sometimes there were footprints in the sand. They were too large. I never saw anyone nearby. One night, I walked along the waterline, hoping the waves would clear my thoughts. I heard whispers in the breeze. They were soft, but felt like they were meant for me. I couldn't make out the words. I shivered and looked around. It was just me, the shoreline, and those strange shells that I wanted to leave, but I felt drawn to stay. I looked down at the footprints again. They seemed to lead back into the water, disappearing before the waves rolled in. I rubbed my eyes, convincing myself I was seeing things. Maybe it was just the salt in the air. The whispers grew louder. My heart raced. I felt like something was right behind me. I turned my head, but there was nothing. Just the empty beach and the shells. I was about to turn back when I heard laughter close to my ear. Then I saw a movement from the corner of my eye. I turned sharply, and there it was. A figure stood at the edge of the surf. It was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like the surface of the water. I couldn't see its face, but it felt familiar. The whispers escalated around me, full of urgency that I wanted to run. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but I couldn't move. The figure reached out a hand. I saw it was covered in something wet and dark, maybe seaweed or something worse. It stepped closer, the sand sinking beneath its weight. And then it spoke. Its voice was a cold whisper, like the wind, but sharper. "You found us." I took a step back, my heart racing. It felt like I walked into deep water, heavy and murky. I turned to run, but the sand seemed to grip my feet. I felt the laughter follow me, echoing in my ears. As I finally broke free and sprinted toward my car, I glanced back. The figure stood there, surrounded by the glowing shells, watching. I didn't stop until I reached town. The whispers still haunted me. I kept thinking about those shells and who or what was waiting for me on that empty beach. I couldn't shake the chill from that night. It clung to me like salt water on my skin. Back in my apartment, I tried to focus on my work, but everything felt distant. The lab was filled with marine samples, yet I couldn't concentrate on anything but those shells and that figure. My mind spiraled with questions. Who was that? What did they want? Days passed, and I couldn't resist the pull of the beach. I drove back there, my heart pounding by the time I parked. It was late afternoon, and the sun cast elongated shadows across the sand. I hesitated at the water's edge. What if I saw that figure again? But curiosity pushed me forward. I wanted answers. As I walked, I noticed something new. Scattered around the shells were bits of what looked like old fishing gear, tangled nets, and rusty hooks. They lay in a chaotic mess near the ring of shells, almost as if they were intentionally placed there. I frowned at the disarray. They didn't belong on the shore. Not here. I knelt to examine the debris. The whispers hovered in the breeze once more, soft and almost familiar. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I glanced at the water, half expecting to see that figure waiting for me. But it was just the undulating waves, undisturbed. I pulled out my phone to take pictures of the shells and the nets. My heart raced as I snapped each photo, both for my research and as evidence. I needed to figure out what was happening here. Maybe these nets had connections to the abalone shells. I'd heard of areas where marine life was affected by discarded gear. Suddenly, a soft laugh echoed across the beach. I froze, the sound sending a chill down my spine. It felt too close, too alive. My breath hitched as I scanned the horizon. I was completely alone, yet it sure didn't feel that way. That's when I noticed something moving beneath the surface of the water. It was subtle, just a ripple at first. My heart skipped. I focused harder, fighting the urge to look away. I had to know. Then, from the depths, a shape emerged. It was another figure, rising from the waves. This one was smaller, more fluid. It almost glided towards the shore with an ethereal elegance. My instincts screamed at me to back away, but I was rooted to the spot. "Help us," it whispered. The words sliced through the air, distinct despite the crashing waves. Before I could comprehend what I was hearing, the figure vanished back into the water with a soft splash. I stumbled back, the ground shifting beneath me. I felt a mixture of fear and helplessness. All the pieces felt more tangled than ever. Were these beings looking for help, or were they something more sinister? The shadows of the afternoon deepened, and the once calm beach was now filled with an uneasy energy. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of the shells glowing again, a pale light emanating from within. My stomach twisted. I had to know more. So, with resolute steps, I approached the shells once more. That's when I saw it half buried in the sand was something dark and shiny. I pulled it free and gasped. It was a small pendant, shaped like an abalone shell and covered in intricate carvings. Whatever was happening here, I was now part of it. With determination flooding my veins, I faced the ocean. I wouldn't run anymore. I needed to uncover the truth, and I would refuse to be afraid. I felt a strange bond with the pendant as I held it in my palm. It was warm, almost pulsing, and the carvings felt significant. My instincts told me it was more than just a piece of jewelry, it was a key to understanding everything that was happening. But I couldn't stay here. The shadows were lengthening, and the sun dipped lower, casting the beach into twilight. I hurried back toward my car, glancing over my shoulder now and then, half expecting to see the fluid figure emerging from the water again. Each splash sounded ominous in the fading light. Once inside the car, I laid the pendant on the passenger seat. I needed to get somewhere safe, somewhere where I could think. I decided to head to the lab. Maybe the pendant had some connection to my research on marine ecosystems. It was worth a shot. As I drove, the chill from the beach settled in my bones. Each passing car seemed like a reminder of the isolation I felt. What had I stumbled into? I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. When I reached the lab, I turned on the fluorescence. The harsh light felt comforting, grounding me in reality. I pulled out a microscope, hoping to examine the pendant further. It looked ordinary at first glance, but the energy it gave off felt different. As I analyzed the carvings, my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen, surprised to see a message from an old friend, Jenna, who had always been fascinated by the ocean. She texted, "Did you hear about the missing divers? They were last seen near the beach." Scary stuff. My heart sank. It had to be connected to what I'd just experienced. Were those figures in the water related to the divers? Were they trying to communicate with me, warning me of something more? I couldn't ignore that possibility. Suddenly, the lab ventilators kicked in, the sound a harsh reminder of my solitude. I decided I needed to act fast. I couldn't just sit on what I'd found. I grabbed my things and drove back to the beach. The night was darker now, and caution gripped me. If I found the divers, could I help them? Or would I just get lost in the waves like they had? When I arrived, the moonlight bathed the shore, illuminating the glowing shells. I scanned the water, searching for signs of movement. But all I found was silence. That's when I felt a presence behind me. I whipped around only to find a figure emerging from the shadows, its features obscured. The heart in my chest raced, fear flooding my senses. "Wait," I shouted, panic lacing my voice. "Who are you?" But the figure didn't respond. It took a step closer, and dread washed over me. It was no longer just the ocean that felt alive. I was faced with a new mystery, one that seemed to breathe, watch, and wait. Then, without warning, the water surged. A wave crashed violently against the shore, splashing me as everything went black. The darkness wrapped around me tightly, disorienting and deep. I blinked, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The sound of waves crashing against the shore filled my ears, mingled with a distant and haunting melody. I pushed myself up, my heart racing. My surroundings were cloaked in darkness, but the moon cast a silver glow over the water. I could still see the outline of the beach, but I felt something was different. Suddenly, I remembered the figure. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. Are you still there? There was no answer, just the relentless ocean. I stood up on shaky legs, wiping sand from my clothes and scanning the area. But the figure had vanished. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted something glimmering in the sand. Cautiously, I approached. It was a smooth, iridescent shell, larger than any abalone I had ever seen. It pulsed with a light that felt almost warm to the touch. I picked it up, the pendant still heavy in my pocket. The instant I held the shell, a rush of energy surged through me, like currents mingling with my own. The melody I had heard earlier now grew louder. It felt familiar, almost like a call to something deep within me. My instincts screamed to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. I knew this shell was important, yet I was terrified of what it might mean. Just then, a wave crashed violently, casting a spray of water in my direction. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the shell. Caught off guard, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. It was as if the ocean itself was alive, holding its breath, waiting for me to make a move. Suddenly, the figure appeared again, this time clearer in the moonlight. It was no longer just a shadow but a woman, her long hair trailing like seaweed around her. She stared at me with a haunting gaze, and I was gripped by an inexplicable mixture of fear and intrigue. "Help them," she whispered, her voice carried by the wind, fragile yet urgent. "Save them." "Who?" I gasped, struggling to process her words. "What do you mean?" But she simply pointed toward the water, and my heart sank as I realized it wasn't just the diverse Jenna mentioned. Something else lurked beneath the waves, something dark and powerful. Before I could respond, the shell in my hand began to throb, synchronizing with the beats of my heart. It felt like a beacon, and suddenly I understood. This was more than just a shell. It was part of the ocean's secret, a connection to those lost below. The figure started to fade, blending into the night. "The truth lies beneath," she said softly, her voice a mere whisper now. "No, wait," I shouted, panic rising within me. I lunged forward, but she was gone, swallowed by the inky waves. I stood alone again, the ocean roaring in defiance, the darkness pressing down on me. I clutched the shell tighter, knowing I couldn't turn back. The night had revealed its mysteries, but I still had so many questions, and I needed to find answers before it was too late. I couldn't linger on the beach any longer. The woman's plea echoed in my mind, filling me with a sense of urgency that almost felt electric. I turned away from the water, fighting the tide of fear trying to hold me back. I needed answers, and it was now or never. I stumbled toward the path back to the road. The shell in my hand grew warmer. It felt alive, as if it had its own pulse. I wanted to believe it held the key to understanding the figure and the dark presence beneath the waves. But what if it only led me deeper into danger? Once I reached the edge of the beach, I spotted a flicker of light in the distance. A small campfire crackled behind some trees. I hesitated, uncertainty coursing through me. Jenna and I had come here to unwind, not to chase shadows or save anyone. But the urgency of the situation pushed me closer to the fire, drawn by a need for companionship and answers. As I arrived, I found a few locals gathered, sharing stories and laughter. My heart sank with disappointment. I wanted to reach out, to ask if they had seen the figure or if they knew anything about the ocean's mysteries. But the weight of the shell in my hand made me feel different, like I didn't belong. Then, I caught a glimpse of a familiar face, the old fisherman, Mr. Albright. He had lived in this town for years and was known for his tales about the sea. Maybe he could help. My feet moved instinctively toward him. "Mr. Albright," I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. He turned, his expression shifting from surprise to concern as he noticed the shell in my hand. "I found this. I think it's important." He leaned in closer, squinting at the shell's iridescent glow. "That's no ordinary shell," he said slowly, his voice gruff and weathered. "You've stumbled onto something ancient, child. It holds stories that can either save or destroy." My pulse quickened. "What do you mean? What story?" He lowered his voice, glancing around to ensure no one else was listening. "They say the ocean has its protectors, spirits that keep the balance. If they ever call for help, it's a sign that something has awoken beneath." A tremor ran through me. "The woman," she said, "to help them. Who are they?" He hesitated, searching my face for understanding. "The lost ones. They've been trapped, drowned by darkness. Your shell might be the key to reaching them. Panic surged within me. I thought of the figure, the dark presence in the water, and the urgency I felt. It all tied together, but I had no idea how or what I was meant to do. How do I help? Just then, the light from the campfire flickered violently, casting eerie shadows around us. I turned instinctively, but it wasn't the fire that caught my attention. It was a figure that emerged from the trees. Someone was watching us. Before I could react, the figure stepped into the light, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Jenna, but something was different. The look on her face was one of fear and urgency. "Please, you have to come with me," she said, breathless. I saw something in the water when I heard it, the melody from before, rising like a tide, weaving through the trees and wrapping around me. It called to me, tantalizing yet foreboding, and I knew I had to follow. My decision was made. The night was only just beginning, and the truth awaited beneath the waves. I followed Jenna without fully understanding why. My curiosity overwhelmed my caution. As we stepped away from the campfire light, the shadows closed in around us, the trees looming like silent guardians. The melody swelled in my ears, a hypnotic call that was impossible to ignore. "Did you see it too?" Jenna asked, glancing back at me. The urgency in her voice was accompanied by a flicker of fear in her eyes. It was like a shadow beneath the waves, but it felt different. It felt alive. I nodded, trying to keep pace with her quickening steps. "Mr. Albright said something has awoken beneath the surface. He thinks the shell I found might be connected to it." Jenna's eyes widened. "Your shell? It's real then?" She gestured toward the pocket where I kept it, confusion and awe mixing on her face. "I thought it was just a weird rock." The melody pulsed again, and I thought I saw a shimmering light in the distance just beyond the edge of the beach where the dark waves crashed and receded. "I don't know what it is, but I think it's calling us." With every step closer to the water, the air thickened around us, saturated with salt and possibility. The ocean lapped at the shore, but something felt different tonight. The waves seemed to vibrate, echoing the mysterious song. Suddenly, Jenna stopped. "Do you hear that?" I paused, my heart racing. The melody intensified, but now it was accompanied by a faint, desperate sound of voice. It wasn't clear, but it resonated with a sense of urgency that sent chills down my spine. "Help me," the whisper carried on the wind, seeping into my bones. My hands tightened around the shell, its warmth now a sharp contrast to the cold fear rising within me. "Do you think it's them?" Jenna murmured, her bravery wavering as uncertainty filled her eyes. Before I could respond, the waves surged higher, a shadow curling just beneath the surface. My breath caught in my throat. "What is that?" I strained to see, my instincts screaming to turn back. "We have to find out. It might be the spirits, the lost ones Mr. Albright mentioned," Jenna urged. I felt a rush of heat, a pulse in the shell, and the plight of the figures beneath the waves overwhelmed my thoughts. I wasn't sure if it was courage or madness, but somehow, I felt compelled to step closer to the edge. "Okay, but we have to be careful." Just as we inched toward the water, a large wave crashed, sending up a spray that soaked our legs. I staggered back, but didn't lose my grip on the shell. That's when I saw it, a figure rising from the depths. It was vague at first, but unmistakable, a human shape, reaching out as if seeking help. "Did you see that?" I shouted, unable to contain my panic. Jenna nodded, her expression a mix of terror and determination. "We need to save them." As the figure broke the surface, its face became clearer, a woman with haunting eyes that glowed from beneath the water. The melody enveloped us, begging for recognition, and I sensed the urgency wasn't just for her. It was a warning. Suddenly, the figure surged forward, the water swirling violently as a dark wave crashed over us, obscuring everything. I felt Jenna's grip slip from my hand, and in that moment of chaos, everything went dark. My heart pounded wildly as I tried to regain my footing. The melody faded, replaced by the roar of the ocean, and I realized we might not be alone at all. I gasped, the salty water splashing against my face. Panic surged through my veins. My eyes frantically scanned the inky darkness, searching for any sign of Jenna. "Jenna," I called, my voice swallowed by the crashing waves. The ocean seemed alive, churning with a life of its own as I fought to keep my head above the water. A flicker of silver caught my eye, something glimmering beneath the surface. I reached for it, thinking it might be Jenna's hand. My fingers brushed cold, slick tendrils, and instinctively, I recoiled. The shadow beneath the water pulsed with a chilling familiarity, and I felt the cold creep up my spine. "Come on, Jenna!" I shouted again, my voice cracking. I stumbled backward, struggling to gain solid ground. I thought about Mr. Albright's warning, his words echoing in my mind. The sea is restless, and it remembers. Just as I was about to turn back, I saw her, bobbing up in the surf. "Over here," she gasped, pulling herself up onto the wet sand. Her hair was heavy and soaked, but her eyes sparkled feverishly. "What happened?" I asked, rushing to her side. I was overwhelmed with relief, but confusion lingered. "What was that thing?" "I don't know," Jenna replied, her breath short. But there was a spark, a pull. It felt like it wanted me to come closer. Her fingers trembled as she wiped the water from her face. I thought I saw others beneath the waves, shapes tangled in the seaweed. Quickly, my mind raced. Could it be true? Were the lost spirits real? The melody had been terrifying yet beautiful, tugging at something buried deep within me. "Do you still have the shell?" I asked, almost afraid of her answer. She nodded, reaching into her pocket. When she brought it out, it seemed to shimmer even in the low light. "I think it responded to the water," she said, her voice faltering. It felt like there was a connection. As I studied the shell, I noticed a faint glow emanating from within its spirals. It was almost as if it breathed. What if it can help us? I wondered aloud. What if it unlocks whatever has awakened? Before Jenna could respond, a sudden rush of frigid wind whipped around us, and the air felt charged with electricity. I glanced toward the ocean. The water swelled, forming massive waves that towered ominously. "We need to get away from the water," I urged, panic creeping back in. But Jenna shook her head, a fierce determination flooding her expression. "No, we can't leave. If something is trying to contact us, we owe it to them to find out what it is." I opened my mouth to argue, but the haunting melody rose again, wrapping around us like a shroud. This time, it wove itself dangerously close to my heart, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something dark was watching us, something even more terrifying than the waves. "Do you see that?" Jenna pointed, her voice trembling. Past the crashing surf and swirling foam, a shadow darted beneath the water, moving faster than anything could swim. I felt an icy grip on my chest. "We need to go now," I shouted, my instincts screaming at me to flee. "Jenna, please." But all she could do was watch as the figure emerged again, the haunting eyes glimmering against the night. They locked onto me, and I knew this was far from over. Something was definitely alive in the depths of the sea, and I was about to find out what that something was. Jenna and I stood on the shore, the waves crashing violently at our feet. A sense of urgency clawed at me, but Jenna's eyes remained glued to the water as if trying to communicate with whatever lurked beneath. "We need to see it, just a little longer," she pleaded. I fought against the anxiety gripping my chest. "What if it's dangerous?" I asked, glancing over my shoulder at the churning sea. The ocean seemed to pulse, and I could almost hear whispers riding the wind, tugging at my resolve. "Just trust me," she said. Her voice was soft but unwavering, and I found myself torn between caution and an exhilarating curiosity that I looked at the shell in her hand. The glow beneath its spirals flickered like a heartbeat, and something deep inside me stirred. "What if we use it?" I suggested hesitantly. "Maybe it will help us understand?" Jenna nodded, hope flickering in her eyes. It could be a key to what we saw. Just as she stepped closer to the edge of the water, the glowing intensified. The melody from before grew louder, swirling around us, a haunting blend of sadness and longing. I steadied myself, taking a step forward. "Okay, let us try this." Holding the shell out into the waves, Jenna began to softly chant the words I couldn't understand. The air vibrated around us, and the water seemed to react with ripples, shimmering closer toward the shore. I watched in awe as shadows danced beneath the surface. Then, everything shifted. The calm rhythm of the ocean transformed into a violent roar. Jenna staggered back, nearly losing her footing in the shifting sand. "Something's coming," she yelled, her eyes wide with terror. Before I could answer, a massive wave surged toward us, larger than any before. It crashed down, sending a spray of salt water into our faces. Gripping the shell tightly, I felt a surge of energy coursing through my body. The glow seemed to connect with the water, illuminating the dark depths, and for just a moment, I glimpsed something immense moving beneath the surface. "Did you see that?" I gasped, breathless. "What was it?" She shouted back, her voice drowned by the ocean's crash that I squinted, trying to focus. The huge shadow vanished just as quickly as it appeared, but I knew I wasn't imagining it. It was something big, something old, I breathed, feeling sick to my stomach. Then I noticed the glow from the shell intensifying, pulsing in sync with my racing heart. "We have to get away from the water," I finally urged, the primal instinct to flee knifing through me. But Jenna refused to budge, determination lighting her eyes. "No. If we just wait, maybe it will show itself again. It needs us." Just as I opened my mouth to protest, a terrifying roar echoed from the depths of the ocean like a drowned beast awakening. The melody turned chaotic, driving the fear deeper into my bones. Suddenly, the sky darkened as if a storm was brewing, and I felt the atmosphere shift. That's when I saw it. A gigantic form rose from the depths, silhouetted against the cresting waves. It was massive, looming menacingly over us. A mixture of awe and dread crashed over me like another wave. "Jenna, run!" I shouted, but my voice was drowned out by the grating howl of the sea as the creature broke through the surface entirely. Panic surged through me, and before I could think, I stumbled backward into the shoreline. The creature's eyes, like twin moons in the darkness, locked onto mine, and in that moment, I felt a chilling connection. I wasn't just observing. I was part of something far beyond my understanding. The night had just begun unraveling its secrets, and I couldn't tell if they would set me free or pull me under. The creature loomed above us, a terrifying marvel that made my heart race. I felt Jenna's fingers tighten around my arm, her breath quickening beside me. I couldn't tell if it was fear or wonder that drove her forward, her eyes wide with excitement rather than terror. "Look!" she exclaimed, pointing at the iridescent scales that shimmered on the beast's back. They reflected the moonlight like 1,000 tiny stars, and impossibly, amid the chaos, I felt a comforting warmth radiating from the shell in my hand. It pulsed vigorously, as if echoing the creature's own heart. "Jenna, we have to go?" I urged again, pulling her gently, trying to drag her away from the grabbing waves and the monstrous figure rising above us. But she was transfixed, lost in a world that felt distant from my own. "Maybe it's here for a reason," she whispered, almost too softly to hear. "Maybe it needs us to help it." My pulse was racing for a different reason. I had glimpsed fear in its eyes, something primal lurking in its depths that mirrored my own. "What's it gonna do? What if it's angry?" I shot back, a tremor threaded through my voice, as if in answer. The creature tilted its massive head, revealing a series of intricate markings etched into its skin. I squinted, trying to decipher the patterns, and for a fleeting second, I felt as if they were speaking to me, a combination of images, emotions, and sound blending together in a chaotic symphony. Then, out of nowhere, the surface of the water erupted. A colossal wave crashed toward us, dragging sand and debris into a roaring vortex. I lost my footing, my breath knocked from my lungs as water shot over my head. Desperate, I instinctively grasped Jenna's arm, dragging her with me as we scrambled back. The shell slipped from my grasp, tumbling toward the creature as the wave receded. Time slowed as I watched it roll along the wet sand, the glow brightening with each moment of contact. The creature's massive eyes seemed to narrow, a flicker of recognition passing between us before the sea swallowed the shell whole. "No!" I screamed, my heart sinking. "The shell." I could feel Jenna's panic. "It's gone. What do we do now?" Her voice was a mix of fear and disbelief, confusion playing over her features. The water churned angrily around us, then suddenly stilled as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had lost something vital. That shell had connected us to this creature. Without it, we were just two terrified kids staring down a force that neither of us understood. "It might still be here," Jenna urged, peering into the inky depths. "We have to find it." "I don't think it wants to hurt us," I said, but doubt gnawed at me. The tension in the air was thick, and I sensed something lurking just beyond the veil of darkness. But before I could finish my thought, the water surged violently again, this time from a different direction. A wave swept over us, the aftermath of a curious ripple that felt more alive than anything else. And within that ripple, I saw shapes forming, rising. Look, Jenna pointed. I blinked hard, desperate to make sense of it. As the massive form broke the surface once more, other shadows appeared beside it, smaller but equally strange. They danced in harmony, a startling contrast to the fear boiling inside me. There was something alluring about the creatures surrounding the behemoth, something compelling. It was as if they were beckoning us closer. Jenna, I said slowly, my voice faltering. What if they're not alone? What if they want us to join them? But before she could respond, the water above exploded into a violent display of light, illuminating the night sky. The air crackled with energy, and I took a step back, my heart racing not just with fear, but an undeniable thrill. The ocean had answers, but what would it cost us to find them? And what if that connection I felt was only the beginning? I don't know how long I stood there, heart hammering in my chest, watching the chaos of the waves. It felt like the ocean itself was pulling us in, making promises that we couldn't understand. The shapes beneath the water shimmered, elusive and enchanting, each twist of their form hinting at a world hidden from our understanding. Can you hear that? Jenna whispered, her voice drowned in the roar of the waves. The melody from before threaded through the chaos, a haunting call that stirred something deep within me. I couldn't tell if it was an invitation or a warning, but I felt drawn to the creatures gliding through the surf like whispers in the night. The energy around us hummed, resonating with my soul. But we weren't alone in this strange embrace. The creature, massive and mysterious, loomed like a Goliath, its presence both terrifying and beautiful. The details of its form began to stand out against the darkness. The sharp angles of its fins, the spiraled patterns of its body, and the glow emanating from the ridges along its back. As I looked closer, I realized there were more figures rising around it, smaller and graceful, swirling like frayed strands in a current. Jenna, we need to go? I urged again, casting worried glances at the rising tide. But before I could pull her away, the scene before us shifted. The large creature tilted its head, and in that moment, for a brief instant, I felt a connection, a glimpse of longing, a yearning for freedom that resonated within me. It seemed to look not just at me, but through me, as if it was waiting for something to happen. The air was electric, thick with tension and uncertainty. I turned to Jenna, whose eyes sparkled with wonder and fear. What if they're trapped? What if those lost divers are somehow part of this? Then we can't leave, she insisted, her determination rallying. We need to find a way to help them. Her words struck a chord within me. I remembered the stories Mr. Albright had told us, tales steeped in tragedy and wonder. The old fishermen believed this creature, these beings, were protectors of the ocean. But what wrath might they unleash if we abandoned them? I hesitated, glancing back at the water, which seemed to pulse with an energy that called me by name. The melody swirled around us, weaving tighter, and just like that, instinct kicked in. You're right, I said, breath quickening. But how do we actually do this? Suddenly, the surface of the water erupted as waves crashed against the shore in dizzying chaos. I dropped to my knees, holding out my trembling hands as shadows emerged from the darkness. My heart raced at the unexpected beauty mingled with the sheer terror. As the silhouettes drew closer, the creature let out a sound deeper than I could comprehend, a resonant echo that reverberated in my bones. Remember the shell? I shouted, desperation threading through my voice. It was our connection. We have to believe that we can find it. Jenna nodded, the fire in her gaze igniting once more, and we were back on our feet, scanning the shoreline where the waves kissed the sand. With frantic breaths, we searched, hoping against all odds that the shell would resurface. But every passing moment brought more waves crashing down, relentless, as if the ocean wanted to shield its secrets. Frustration built like a storm in my chest, and just when I thought all hope was lost, I caught sight of it, a glimmer of light, bobbing amidst the froth as it rolled toward the beach. There, I pointed, urgency flooding my words. Over there. We sprinted toward it, each wave threatening to drag us under. But there it was, the shell, shimmering against the obsidian sand. I scooped it up, feeling its warmth flood my fingers as I cradled it against my chest. I have it, I shouted, risen with the adrenaline of victory. As if answering my command, the creatures surged forward. They danced through the waves, the shadows shifting into finer forms, their eyes glimmering with what looked like hope. The massive creature, the protector, loomed closer, revealing ominous beauty intertwined with grace. A foreboding feeling crested, a part of me recognizing the weight of my actions and the responsibilities that loomed ahead. Jenna turned to me, her eyes wide with possibility. "Now we have to use it," she insisted. Determined, I stepped forward, raising the shell toward the shimmering beings in the surf. As soon as I did, the ocean stilled, the tumult receding as if the sea itself was holding its breath. The melody flowed through me again, rich in urgency, pulling on threads of something greater than myself. With my heart racing, I started to hum along with the rhythm, letting the shell guide me. Every note seemed to resonate with the depth of the ocean, drawing forth emotions I couldn't explain. The smaller creatures began to swirl around me, creating a haunting dance, their movements in sync with my melody. And then, as if a spell had been cast, the waves began to light up, colors bursting forth in vibrant blues and greens, morphing into shapes that whispered of ages past. I glanced at Jenna, who wore a mixture of awe and fear, but she nodded, a whisper of belief reflecting back in her eyes. The massive protector rose out of the water, a reverberating song echoing from its depths. I realized it wasn't just a guardian of the sea, it was also a part of the lost divers, tethered to their memories, preserving their past in its wake. "This is the truth they need," I shouted, with newfound confidence flooding my veins. The song peaked, and I felt heat rush through the shell. The tendrils of magic pulsed against my palms, throwing me into visions of the people trapped beneath the waves, a kaleidoscope of life intertwined with the ocean's heart. They were not lost. They were memories waiting to be freed. In that moment, understanding washed over me. They were part of the sea. They lived intertwined with its waves and patterns. We were not merely observers. We were conduits for their cries, for the heartbeat of the ocean. As the final note rang out and faded into the air, the massive creature tilted its head back, a sound spilling forth that was unlike anything I'd ever heard, an echo, a lament, yet somehow a promise. When the waves settled, I felt lighter, as if burdens long forgotten floated away. But beneath that sense of release, questions lingered. Who would hear the stories now? Would the darkness hidden below still remain? What about the troubled souls that echoed through the tides? As the reflective calm enveloped me, I remembered that though we had helped bring peace, the sea would always hold its mysteries. Maybe they were meant to be unresolved. As Jenna and I gazed at the placid water, the echoes of the ocean still whispered of the past, and beneath the surface, I felt the weight of what could be, of what once was. But for now, we had survived. The night had changed us, and the memories slept, waiting for the right moment to rise again. As I walked away from the water's edge, I felt the presence of the ocean in my heart, a bond forged with the mysteries of its depths, leaving me forever connected and forever wondering.